Hey guys, welcome back to the Let's Talk podcast. I'm so happy to be here with my friends today. My name's Debany. I go to church here. I'm a cell leader. I'm in the kids ministry, and I do a lot here and there. But today I'm joined by my friends Stephanie, Gabriel, and Jesus. And what if you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hi everyone, so good to be here as well with some amazing friends, and being here just makes me love my church even more. I am also a leader here, and I have my leader as well, and it's just a privilege to be able to share what we've received throughout this time. So hello everyone.
Hi, my name's Gabriel. I'm the oldest musician on stage.
Fun fact.
Fun fact. I'm also a cell leader. I'm part of Pastors 12. And I'm also excited to talk amongst friends that I grew up with in school and since they were a little kid.
That's crazy. My name is Jesus. I'm also a leader here at church. And I'm happy to be able to share this time with you guys. It's my first time doing this, so it's exciting. I've always wanted to be in a podcast.
Check it off the list. Podcast done. Well, we had a really good message today. It was a little bit different this week, and I really enjoyed it. Like, because I didn't even hear that podcast that they were talking about when we went up, or when they went up this Sunday. I believe it was Maria, Matt, Nadia, and Savannah. I was like, who am I missing?
That was the first one, right?
Yeah, that was the first one, and I had not even heard it. My dad said that we were all crashed out. I believe it because I did not hear one single bit of it. But it was a continuation to restore. And I got so much out of it. I looked at other people around me, and their eyes were tearing up, and I was like, okay, it's not just me. All right, now I know I'm not alone. But it was so good, and I think it helped us focus, okay, what does it mean, to be restored? What does that look like? And we got to hear their testimonies, but I just want to, go over that again and just ask you guys, what does it mean to you to be restored? After hearing that message, what's something that you came out with where you're like, you know what, I didn't even think about that when it comes to God restoring our lives?
Who wants to go first?
Ladies first, Stephanie.
Okay. For me, I think as well, this message and this topic has been so eye-opening, understanding that we all need to be restored, that there's never really a point where we can just be that's it. I'm good. I don't need to learn more. There's all of the areas in my life are perfect. But no, in reality, God always wants to take us into a higher level. So that means that sometimes we have to go through the trials, through the process. Sometimes it's painful, but at the end of the day, God says, hey, I'm doing this for a reason. It's for a purpose, for you to be restored so that you can be a blessing for others. So yeah.
I think it was just cool seeing people I talk to on a daily basis, Savannah, Maria. And for example, I didn't really know a lot about Maria because I guess you just never really talk about that stuff whenever you're, with your friends. But it was cool to see. I knew about Savannah and Matt, but Maria, I didn't really know about her experience too well. But then I realized, I was like, man, Pastor's such a he's so smart for putting those four people together because all of them had a background and
experience.
Yeah, and then later I found out that it wasn't even scripted. It wasn't something that he sat down and planned out. No, it was just, he basically,
the Holy Spirit,
he just, put them together, and all four of them really had an amazing, I guess you could say, testimony. But for me, restored, it just reminds me of furniture. That you were
brought up last week.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't even think about
you were once created in a beautiful way. You had a purpose, but then it got broken. Used there. You got little paint over here and then over there, and then when we come to Jesus, it's just you start. What's it called? Polishing you. And a lot of the times, those parts are not the fun parts. Those are the difficult moments when we go through trials or whatever. But then when you see the final result, you see it in people in the church. You see them and they're different since when they first started coming to church after their encounter and stuff like that. So to me, that's just looking at the church in general, seeing that really is what a restored person looks like. They're still not perfect, but they have been restored by the Father.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up about seeing the other church members, because that's something I've been speaking to Stephanie about during the week when we've been meditating on this. And it's like, there's a certain person here that I always talk about because...
Say the name.
That's why I asked for permission. But Jose Araiza.
Yeah.
It's just something about him. His energy, like you show up, he's like, I don't even think he's part of the welcome team. I think he's like security.
Yeah.
But like just the fact that he greets everyone that comes in.
He always hugs me.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah,
he gives me a hug.
I could be across the room and he'll come up to me or he'll make eye contact with me and like try to find a way to like say hi.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was telling Stephanie that it's just crazy because it's like Pastor mentioned, like a lot of the times we're sitting next to people and we think that, oh, no, wait, their life can't be as bad as mine. But it's like, we're seeing the end result. We're seeing after God. So I don't know how he was before, but I see the restoration.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm witnessing. And that's how important it is when we give our testimony.
Yeah.
You know, they see, like I see Jesus now as, you know, a popular business owner. But
Be quiet. Get out of here.
the best corner in town, address. But it's, you know,
It'll be in the comments.
you don't see the before, you know, it's
Yeah.
just the same thing
I
with
did.
me.
No, I'm just kidding.
Stephanie most definitely
I
did.
did.
But
I remember.
The only thing I remember about him was
Oh,
your
here
hair.
we go.
Was your hair in 7th grade that I'm never going to forget.
Yeah.
He would put
And
gel.
I wish I did.
So much gel, slicked back. Like I was ahead of the trend, you know?
It's hurricane and it was stiff.
It would
That
have
thing did
moved.
not move.
I just remember white jeans and chanclas.
Oh
So
my
you're ahead
God.
of the
Why are we
game.
talking?
Yeah.
Should we talk about all of our... Just kidding.
No.
I got pictures to prove it too.
Please
But that,
don't.
yeah, that's what I, you know, restoration, you know, it's this topic has been so strong in these days. It's like, man, I want to be able to give off that. Like, man, how did Gabriel get there? You know, I want to be like that, you know. And, you know, Pastor was like, you know, we admire some people, but we don't see the before. And that's my example. Yeah. That's what I've been experiencing these
That's
past
so
weeks.
crazy. Like to hear them talk like same way that you said, like, I know Maria and like I know her, but like only because, you know, like you pick up on things, but we've never like had like a deep conversation where she's like told me like, oh, this is my situation. Or same thing with Savannah. She would always say like, oh, I thought you knew. And I'm like, no, I didn't know. Like, I don't know you. I just know you now. Like I can't imagine her before. Like, I don't even remember her being
Me neither.
standoffish.
Me
Like,
neither.
The way I see her now is like the way she's always been in my
Yeah.
sight. And so I think about that, like for a lot of people at church, like how God created us to be in community. Like there's a reason he wants you to know people. Like it brings it back to restore. Like he
That's
wants
so
you to
true.
be a people person.
Mhm.
People are meant to love people. And I think that's so crazy. Like, cause we can have like a whole life around these people and we can think we know them. Like Nadia was saying, like, you know, telling me how like, I didn't even know that about you. Like, that's so weird. Like that you had that testimony. But if we don't like get close to the people of God, like if we don't make an effort to, you know, make eye contact, get uncomfortable, speak to them, how are you? Like even that happens with me too. I'm like, I see the person and I'm like, I want to say
That's how I
hi,
am.
but then I get nervous and I'm like, why did
And
you
it's
just
crazy
go
'cause,
say
like,
hi?
Like the church works, or not that it works like this, but we all have our own cells. And you don't always get to know the experience for other cell members. You know, like for example, people in your life group that I might not know personally because we just, you know, don't get to
Yeah.
that deep conversation. But you do get to see like a before and after. You know, you do get to see, but you don't know the whole story. But there is a before and after that you're able to just see.
You're there for the after.
Yeah,
You got them in
Yeah.
the before.
like for example, Savannah. I don't remember really the ratchet Savannah,
Oh
but
my God.
I do now
Is that
see. I said it too loud, right? But I do see now how God has used her and how God, has restored her life. And it's evident how now she's helping or guiding to restore other people.
And for me as well, like Nadia, I remember
Ratchet
she
Nadia.
would-
Oh,
no,
I think it's still there. I'm just kidding.
no, she would go to life group with my mother-in-law, and so I remember seeing her like when she had barely started, and how it was kind of a battle for her to like even come. It was a struggle, but the
I don't even picture
restoration-
that. I don't picture that.
I just remember a little bit, just because obviously I'm married with my husband, and we would go over to my in-laws, and I would see her there. But just to see like the restoration of her whole family is a testimony, and is amazing to see what God has done. So
That's so crazy that that's the only word I can think of. But it's powerful the way God works, because if we don't, have this personal time, if we don't like get together and we don't talk about it, like you can go into the church as a newcomer, or even as like coming this whole time, and like be a person who's like, yeah, well, everyone's life is perfect. Everyone, like, yeah, that's why you're at church, because look at you. But it's like, if you don't get to know someone, it reminds me of that verse where it's like, and they have overcome by the words, the power of their testimony and the blood of the Lamb. Like, that's the power of a testimony, that I could see people like next to me, and then I talked to them after church. They're like, that like really spoke to me, because that was my experience. Like, that's my story. And we think like, oh man, like this is a shameful story, like, or this is something that hurts me. But for then God to grab it and to use it to glorify his name, that it makes me think of like the woman at the well. Like it makes you want to live an experience where you're like, I want to look like her. Like I want to meet Jesus, and I want to be like transformed like her. Like no one is like, that's how we see them now. Like Nadia, like I want to have her energy.
Well, it's kind of like when Pastor said in the teaching, he said that when you are restored, you can't help but to help others. It's like it impulses you and it pushes you, because you are understanding the joy that there is in the Lord. And you're like, wait, no, like I was there where you are now. Like, let me just show you. And he said, you can't just stand still and just not do anything, know? And I think that's why a lot of the leaders here do what they do. Like, for example, I mentioned it earlier in the pre-show on today at church. And I was just kind of talking how Stephanie was my first leader. She's not my old leader. She was my first leader. And
I'm not that old.
She's not, no. And basically, I think that we as leaders make that conscious decision to just like, no, I don't care that it's time consuming. I don't care that I have to add another 15, 20 minutes to my prayer so that I can pray for you too. Like it's worth it, because like Stephanie did that. I don't know how much she prayed for me, but she did. And 17 years later, we're still here,
Business owner. Single. I mean,
handsome. I'm just kidding.
Just kidding.
Not kidding, though.
Just kidding, not kidding. Everybody's watching. It's in the comments down below. The information.
You guys like made me turn red now.
Oh my God.
You did it to yourself, to be honest.
Kept going.
But I think it's an amazing, tangible thing that you're able to see. And it just makes me be super grateful for now that I'm on this side of the picture, it makes me grateful that Stephanie decided, because she could have easily been like, not today. And I'm pretty sure you didn't always feel like it. Like we were still human, but because she was restored, and God began to do things in her life that she was impulsed. Is that the word? Like impulsed, or she was pushed to try to restore other people, me along the way.
And the beautiful thing as well that you're saying that is that like, even after so many years, because, we've been coming for a while, even after so many years, there's still areas where like God still wants to restore us, to make us even better, and for us to go and like help people in different areas, because it doesn't stop there. Like there's still more restoring to do, and that's beautiful for me.
That's awesome. Like that, even if you're like unsatisfied, like yeah, but I don't see, like,
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, but it's, who said you were done? You know, God is still continuously working within us. Like, as long as we allow God to work within us. I like last week, it's, I always feel weird saying this at cell too. I'm always like, Pastor, my dad had said, basically had said, like, we're restored continuously to continue to restore others. Like, the more we're restored, the more we can help others. And that kind of makes me think, like, wow, okay, God, we're restored with a purpose, obviously, but the more we learn, the more God, like, works in us, the more we're able to help other people. And I think that's super powerful, but it also, like, puts you in focus. Also last week, he had mentioned, like, God doesn't restore you just to make you like a beautiful saint, a picture on the wall. And I like how you were saying too, like, that Stephanie was almost like pushed into like wanting to help. And sometimes we're a little bit backwards in that understanding. Like, we know what's the right thing to do, right? Because we've been coming to church. We know, like, we should help people. We know that we should start a cell. And you're like, but I don't want to do it. Like, it's not in me. I don't want to. Like, when they had all said, like, who of you saw yourself as a leader? And they were like, yeah, not me, not me, not me. And then it's like, but
That was Matt, and I asked the question.
You remember that day
Yeah.
where he was like,
It was
way.
a campfire. And I was trying to see, okay, who can I make like the next leader? You know, who can I like maybe like push? And, you know, and everybody said yes. I was like, yeah. And then he was the only one that said no. I was like, okay. Well, the one that I thought maybe was ready said no. But I did push him to do it.
Give him that push.
Yeah.
No, but it's crazy because you think, like, you know, like, I don't even have the desire to do it. But once you experience like just a moment with Jesus, like, you can't help but tell the whole town about who Jesus is. You can't help but like go on stage and say, yeah, I'll share my testimony, or be at work and be like, oh, I'm going to tell you about what Jesus has done in my life. Like, it's something that you can't like hold yourself back from because it's too good.
Yeah.
So I think of like, if you're missing that desire, like, don't even worry about it.
You know what comes to mind? I remember since I was little, there's been countless times that I spent time with Pastor, alone and with other people. And something that I would always be like, man, Pastor just talks about Jesus all the time. And I was like, and I began to kind of be, like, carefully like watch him more. And then we would be after prayer, he'd be ministering to someone. You know, when we were at, you know, eating tacos, China Harbor, so anywhere, he was always talking about Jesus, because again, he's always trying to restore, even if it's something super small, he's doing that for others, because again, he's like pushed, I guess, by God to do that. And I think that, I'll take it back again to Stephanie. There's moments where us as disciples, we just don't want to be pushed. We don't want to be pushed because the pushing does sometimes feel uncomfortable. But it connects really well with what Pastor was preaching a couple of weeks ago about the arrows, how we really just can't do it on our own. We really need someone to push us. We need someone else to excel. And that's why I love my church so much, because we always have someone who's ready to push you, or your leader, or just someone in general who can listen and just be like, okay, let me push you to the right direction, basically. Yeah. So get a leader.
Yeah. And going off of that, I wanted to ask you guys, like, in what ways has God restored you? Like, where you can think of, oh yeah, God used this person and they helped me like in this way. Or it doesn't even have to be a person, but like in a moment where you felt like God restored something within you. Mine
was definitely a person. I just said his name.
But what was it again?
Jose Arreaga. And it's not just him. It's just the one that, for some reason, it's just, I don't know, I just paid attention more.
Yeah.
You know, he's just always the one I'm like, okay, let me get away. But it's like, I didn't notice, well, maybe I didn't notice I was like that. It's not that I didn't want to talk to anybody, but it's just, I was kind of just going on stage, sit down, and I'll say hi to my disciples or something. But that's something God's restoring me is, you know, it's been a couple weeks now, but I'm trying to. I didn't do it on intentionally, but I wanted to be, more open. I wasn't as open. I know I say hi to people. I make sure when I pass somebody, I want people to know that God is good. They don't want to see a bitter middle-aged man. I'm not saying I don't know, but
Middle-aged.
Actually,
I'm right there with you, bro. You're not middle-aged.
We're middle-aged,
Oh.
but we're healthy ones.
There you go.
But yeah, that's something he's restoring in me. It's just being open, not being so closed. It's just it's kind of like a curse. I think Maria had mentioned it earlier that it was a curse. My mom is kind of not the most open person. My grandma, definitely not the most open person. And it's just something that I don't want my son to do. I don't want my son to not gather around the other church kids and not say hi or just hang around with some. I want him to grow up, but I have to be restored to be able
freedom.
and have that freedom to be able to guide my son, Liam, to be that kind of person too. One that has that true joy of God, that's excited to share the testimony that he's, going to have. And that's something that, God's working in me now.
Amen.
That's so good.
I think for me, God definitely changed the way, or he restored me in the sense of I have a different idea, or I see myself differently since when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
You hear, like, I just say, man, my friends can say like Karen and, Moses and everybody were like, oh, they grew up in the church. But I literally grew up in the church. Like, I was 13 years old. Like, I can say I'm part of the club now, you guys. Grew up in the church. But I did grow up in the church, and you hear, everyone being so positive and giving you a word of blessing. But then sometimes you just don't believe that. You don't believe that that's for you. You don't believe that blessing specifically for you. Mm-hmm. And I think that God definitely restored my identity, my perception of life, that there's a purpose, that, it's not just about getting up, going to work, and that's it. No, there's more than that. And he just restored my idea of who he is for me. I just had that epiphany the pastor had when he was 18, that God is my father. Like, that was like mind blowing. Mm-hmm. And I've known it, but until you realize it, you're like, man, if God gave me Jesus, what else can he give me? What else would he say no to? Nothing. If he already gave me the most precise, most beautiful possession that he has, his son, he gave me Jesus, what else can't he give me, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely what God has been restoring me as of lately, but also in the long run, as being here for so long.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I think for me as well, just kind of going off of like what Jesus was saying, you've been at church for a while, and for me, sorry, get emotional, but it's just kind of like there comes a point where you've known about who God is, you've known his love, but when you go through these trials, difficulties, sometimes you might ask, like, okay, does God, like, I know he loves me because we've been at church, I've known who he is, but like, that's the enemy's job, to make you doubt, to be like, you haven't seen this promise in your life. Are you sure that, God is real? And, I don't know, this past year or so, I went through like a really difficult trial, but at the end of it, like, I was able to see and experience God's love and his restoration in my life. Because like I said, sometimes you might think it's been so long, you've been at church for so long, like how is it that you are not sure of God's love? But that's the enemy's job. He wants to make us doubt, and if we don't have our eyes on Jesus, then we can lose focus. But God is so good that he restores us, like that even when we go through those trials, like he shows his love and restores us and says like, hey, this isn't over yet. Like, this isn't all that I have for you. I have so much more. And so he, that's one thing that he's been doing within me, restoring me in. So
yeah, that's
Amen.
Really good. I think of like how, like, for me personally, I don't know if this is how you guys well, we had talked about, sorry, my brain's everywhere. I want to talk about everything. I'm like, let me hit all the points. Like what we're being restored to, and kind of like we think, okay, I got Jesus, like I'm done. Like it's like I should have everything. I should have all the fruits of the spirits. I should be the wisest. I should know better. I should have this. I should see this blessing in my life because I have Jesus. Like I'm done. I've reached the end. But it's like, no, you haven't. You're not even, I would like to think you haven't even scratched the surface. Yeah. Like
there's way much more.
Yeah. And like in this time and space relatively, you're so young. Like it's so small. Like we don't know like everything yet. And to know that even at this point, like God isn't restoring you to become this version of yourself, but he's restoring you to like the original form of Adam and Eve before the fall. Like that's what he's restoring you to. So there's nothing like that you're like, oh, well, I should have been here and I should have had this. Like, no, God, you are good. And you're taking me right, like in the perfect timeline. I'm hitting every step perfectly as long as I'm trusting you every step along the way. And I like how you said that earlier, like, you know, and if we do like doubt, like he always brings us back. He always holds us like back in. And it's like, he's like, come on, reel it back. Like, I'm still your father. I'm still your provider. I'm still good. Something that always gets me, like when I remember that God has always been good to me. And I was like, man, can I only sing this song? I'm like, no, God has been good to everyone. This one song, the All My Life You Have Been Faithful.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Wait, what song? A Million Little... What is
no, not that one. Stop, you did that on purpose. No, All My Life You Have Been Faithful. And that was like my jam. Like when my appendix burst out of nowhere. And then I was like, I'm in so much pain. And then I was in the hospital room by myself. Like, and then I was like, you know what, let me sing. And then that's the song I thought of, like, all my life he has been faithful. Even so here, true. Even like in like the scariest situation, he's been faithful. And then my grandma passed away, and then we sang All My Life You Have Been Faithful.
Wow.
And like in the worst times, like I could not even doubt how good he has been to me. Like, and that's when you like take in like that he's your father. There's no way you can doubt it. Like even the bad things like that you would consider bad, but are now a part of your testimony, like, oh,
he makes them work for our good.
Yeah. So now it's like, I can't even be like sad about that. It's my new, like my new praise dance. Like it's my new like reason to worship because he brought me out of that. He brought me out of that shame. He brought me out of that. So for me, it's like, if I'm like worried about not being there yet, I'm like, I'm being restored to the original version, not to who I was when I first believed in Jesus or, you know, like, oh, when I was so passionate then. No, God is going beyond that. And he's going to the original design to Adam and Eve before the fall. Like that's what he's going to.
And then now like our job, because when you have that realization, now it's like your job to like make someone else see that and understand that that's exactly where God wants to take you to. A couple of years ago, the last time we went to Florida in the conference, I had a little, I know it's weird, but I had like a little vision and it was from God. I know it was from God. And long story short, I saw this table, beautiful table. And there was, you know, my family there. There was a lot of things on this table and everything represented something that I've always wanted. Everything. But then when I noticed on the outside, I've noticed that there was another table. And at this table, it was one of my disciples with his wife. And I saw two little kids that one of them looked like you. It was Moses and Adela and their separate table. And I saw like a little girl with like little fleco, like when you used to have it when you were little. And it just kind of shows you that God has a table for you, right? A table for you. But once you conquer your table, it was funny because when I noticed what everything that was on my table, like my family had salvation, my disciples, and my everything I've ever wanted. Once I saw that, I noticed that he had his table. But it's kind of like when you realize all this stuff, now it's like our job to show that like, hey, you have one too. It's not just me who's, God is all good to me. No, that's for you too. And a lot of the times we meet these disciples, meet these people who are just as broken, if not even worse, when we first came to God. And now it's like starting the cycle all over again, where we're able to like guide them literally by the hand. And that's where I think Pastor was, more say the Holy Spirit has been very strategic with what he's been teaching us through our pastor, because it's been such like a smooth roller coaster where it's not like scary, but it's like it's healing and it's hitting a lot of different points that it's just seamless. The word has just been seamless.
Yeah.
This word in the past two, starting with Father and then going into the arrows and then now this one.
So amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy because I have one disciple in particular, and I brought his name out during our cell this week. And something is, I know he came from a broken home. And Jason, he came from a broken home and he lived, he's my sister's boyfriend. And it's crazy because I've seen him like how his family is, they're not, he comes from a split family and he was basically alone. The reason why he came to live with my parents is he had really nowhere to go. His mom was never home. And it's just seeing him, I saw him where he was then, and then I see him now. It's like he's like so attentive during cell, and this
he
Sunday,
wants to come
like
to church.
He has that desire, and it's like, whoa, it's like I saw him before and now I see where he is now, and it's just like, kind of like what he said, the table, like I kind of see him being able to have his family saved and his friends, and he's always inviting people too. That's the cool thing. So he can get my 12 pretty quick. Just him, you know what I mean? But it's just crazy, it's like as Jesus mentioned, you get to see, I see him and his table and his family, and married to my sister, which normally you'd be like, but but I like that he searches for God, and he actually, like, I know he loves God. And
you know how you can tell when he smiles? I see him; he's always smiling too.
You know what I'm talking about, Jason?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was gonna ask you when you said you saw someone on the table and his wife. I didn't know you were talking about Moses. I was like, so who's the next one on the table?
Oh.
Is it Matt?
I know.
I mean, not Matt. I don't know. You tell me.
No, well, it's because it was like I think what God was trying to do quickly was just like trying to show me like, hey, this is not just for you. Like, I got this for you, but look over there, and then there was like a spotlight on the table, and it all happened in a matter of 5 minutes. Not even 5 minutes, like 10 seconds probably. I saw Moses and Adela on a table, and I saw two little kids there too, and they had their own table, meaning they got a blessing too, but not just them. Everybody else got a table. You get a table. You get a table. You get a table. So
that kind of reminds me of like we're talking about the cycle of blessing. Like, what does that mean to you guys? I don't know if you remember. Like, I don't want to like just say what I think, but what did you guys
say? What you think? Elaborate a little bit for me.
No, like, I want you to answer too. But basically, when he was saying like God blesses us to bless others, like what does that mean to you, and what's the impact that has on your own life as a cell leader, as a cell goer, as a church member?
I look at, like the pastor was giving us the example of David, how he was someone who lived in that cycle and someone who experienced all of the blessings of God, but was also able to share, through his experience to others, like what God had done for him, even though he had messed up, because we all do, right? We all make mistakes. We all sin. And something that we were talking about is like how God doesn't say like one sin is bigger than the other. No, like all of us have sinned. It doesn't matter how big, how small. But, when you recognize, just like David did when he understood, like, my life was different before with God, and that's something that people sometimes can see, like people that have Jesus and people that don't. Basically, you can see that difference is because, their life is different as far as being able to just basically just like feel like the presence of God in their lives, but also share with others, like share what you've received. And that's what David did for me. And so that's one thing that I look at and what I want to do at cell group, you know, with the girls that I have, my disciples. It's, you know, my motivation is to tell them like, hey, you know, God, this is a cycle, like for you to live in the blessing and be able to share. Because like Pastor said, the more you give, the more you receive. So
I remember I used to, because after Stephanie, I had another cell leader. And I remember at that time, it was Angel, by the way. We would like had this group of like, you know, young men. And at the time I already had a car. And I would drive so much on Thursdays for cell. I would drive all over the city. I would pick up people from like Landlac. Is that what's called Landlac?
yes.
Lagland, sorry.
That sounds familiar. I've heard of that.
All the way to
United
like
States,
North Star.
or-
Yeah, United States and Europe. Just kidding. And I would drive so much, picking people up, dropping them off after cell. And I always did it with such joy because I knew that they were receiving more that I could ever give to them, right? So years later, like just years and years later, I would always say, man, I can't wait, because I had my cell at one point too, and I would also picking people up. But I kept saying, man, I cannot wait until these kids grow up and have cars, right? Couldn't wait for that. I couldn't wait. When Nadia was talking today about her like living with her friend, because she did that, I had to go pick them up, her son for cell, and they lived far. Okay, so it was crazy because fast forward years later, I've never struggled with money for gas.
Wow.
Never. Like I've never said, man, I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Like it's hard, or I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't have any guy. Even like people, like the other day, I drove someone to their house after cell, and their mom, because he's a little boy, their mom was like, oh, here's some money. I'm like, no. Like, why are you giving? It was weird for me because I've never taken people's money for gas because I've never needed it. Never needed money for gas. And I like to think that is how, like, the cycle of blessing, like I gave, and God is like, okay, here. Like, I might not have money for certain things. Like, I don't know. It just so happens, and maybe I didn't have money for this one day, right? But when it came to put gas on my car, it was never not there. It was always. So I feel like that's one way that, you know, we can invest in the kingdom that way. I'm not telling people to go and like give their money away to people, only if you're prompted by the Holy Spirit. But it is better to give than
I can relate to that
than to
because
receive.
I think we both had him in our cell. I had Anthony when he first came to church, and he lived like with no cell signal. Now you got to send your message before. I'll be there in 10 minutes, because once you get into there, you lost your signal. And it's like the gas thing. I wasn't thinking about it at that time when I'm putting gas, but like when you stop and take a break, you're like, wait a minute, like I haven't struggled for gas, you know, and it's crazy that you mention it because I'm thinking about it now.
Yeah.
Like, hey, wait a minute, not a long time ago. I mean, thankfully now none of us struggle with gas.
It's like you were investing your money, especially when you're young and you don't know how to like budget or whatever. And I was sometimes, you know,
when you're young and you don't know how to budget. That's sad.
Sometimes you were literally like, we go to eat after cell. It was like it's a thing you do. Go to church, go to Wingstop, go to this place, right? And a lot of the times, like I talk to some of them now, and they're like, "Yeah, like man, we were always eating." I was like, "Yeah, who do you think was paying for it? Who do you think was paying for the whole pizza, or you know, the 20-piece wings so we could all have 5? Who do you think was paying for it? Not you. It was me." But the same way, like you're investing in these people, and God doesn't leave you empty. Like never. Like praise God. I mean, back then I was not always faithful in my tithes and offerings. Not compared to now, and God was still faithful at the time. Like he still knew what he was doing, you know, in general. So,
and this cycle, that when you're in this cycle and you're blessing other people, you know, it's Pastor had mentioned, like you had to be blessed first before you can bless. it's like this ripple effect. It just that, your disciples, you bless them, and then now they're able to pass on that blessing, and now their blessing, or they're going to do what we did. They're going to buy the pizza. They're going to pick up disciples. And it's like the cycle of blessing goes beyond that, just right here, right? It goes to the disciple, and then now they, it just continues going and going.
Like when you pay at Starbucks, when they're like, "Oh, the person in front of you paid," and you're like, "Dang it!" Okay, I got the next person. Like you just kind of have to at that point. Like, fine, I'm blessed.
And I like how Pastor said, it's not just about our finances, because of course that's important. When we give our tithes and offerings, we receive more, but as well with our time. With our time as far as like friendships, because I think that's what truly. Like when you have that relationship with your friend, when you spend time with them, because me, now that I'm older, I'm a mom, of course I'm married, and my friends a lot of them are married, they have their own things going on, they have their kids to take care of, but, for us, like spending time with one another, that's like a blessing, and it shows them like, hey, what the true purpose is and how God wants us to live that blessed life. So
Yeah.
So I guess it's also investing, or what we're talking about, like giving, right? Giving your time too.
Yes.
Because you could have easily be spending time with your son, with your husband, with your family, but you're choosing. It's like sometimes Sunday's day of rest, right? But you're not really resting, because you're investing in these people and your disciples, or you're investing in people that maybe don't even recognize that you're investing in them, that they don't even realize what you're doing, but it's all intentional. So
we talk about that on Sundays. Like, all right, who are we inviting today?
Yeah.
Or who are we going to do this? Let me message them.
you guys never invite me.
You're already here.
We haven't hung out since your birthday last year, Stephanie.
Oh my God.
That was
Oh my
fun.
gosh, we need to hang out.
So we went to Stephanie's house. We didn't leave until 5 a.m.
Oh yeah.
That's why she didn't invite us back. Because we left at
Not
5 and we didn't even want to
true.
leave. We were just like there. And Stephanie and Gabriel were like, hey.
I know.
Like, my
Next time,
birthday's over. Can y'all leave?
I was upstairs in my room asleep.
Oh no.
That was fun.
I would go. I remember I went upstairs one time. I flopped on the bed, took like 30-second mini nap, and then went back downstairs because
You did?
Well, let me
couldn't
tell you
hang.
something. Paco does that when we go to his house. Paco does that, but he just doesn't come back down.
okay, I have.
He
done
goes
that
up and he doesn't even say
That's
good night.
it.
He just goes
That's me.
upstairs
Savannah
and
says
oh yeah, you do that.
because she sees me slipping away. I like kind of disappear. I don't want to tell her bye.
And then
I'm
Nadia just like
here.
just kind of okay. Paco left. I was, okay, that's our cue.
Yeah,
Let's
like
go.
when her parents come over, or Moses and her parents will come over. Once I see them whip out sequence,
Oh my god!
Adela and that
He goes
sequence.
upstairs.
and then I'm like, I'll go upstairs. I'll tell Stephanie I'll be right back.
I'm like,
And
he's
then they're
not
like,
coming
oh, he's not
back.
coming back. And I wake up. I'm like, oh my gosh. And they're like, yeah, my parents left already. I'm like, oh my god, I'm sorry.
It's sequence. Nothing like that game.
Sequence can go forever.
I like it if I win. If I'm not winning, I don't want to play.
I don't like playing with
always-
Adela.
Just kidding.
I don't like that.
I said it.
I said that.
I said it.
Sorry.
She
It's
was
because
kidding,
Adela's
Adela.
super like she's
She's good.
competitive and she's
The
good at any
better
game.
ass.
So unless I'm playing with her in her team,
That's
then I
why
don't
we
wanna
like to play together, because we
Yeah.
have battles. Like, I'm gonna win. No, I'm gonna win.
Yeah, we stopped being like family at that moment.
Yeah,
It's just
family's
like-
over.
That breeds
You can't do that
tension.
right there. Nope, that has one eye, not two eyes.
That's why I don't play Monopoly with her.
Oh my god, we used to play Monopoly.
Right, but I don't.
There's a
don't-
reason why you don't play no more.
Exactly.
That game's too long. It's not
It's fun.
All right, well, bringing it back to the cycle of blessing before I forget something that like I had remembered. I like, and it comes. I can't help but think of like tithing and offering. An experience where I had where, well, I'm at this point where like when I make money, I'm like, oh, that's all I have, you know?
Yeah.
So my dad had asked me a while back. I had just gotten my tips and he was like, oh, can I borrow like this amount? And it was like $80. Okay, I'll expose myself. It was $80, but I had just gotten those $80. And I was like, oh man, like, should I withhold? Like my dad always gives me everything. And then at the end, like I felt bad. I was like, no, I'll give him like the $80. And then we were at the mall and I saw like, oh, he's like, it's because I want to buy this. And then after I saw him with like his cologne and he was so happy. That wasn't even the full cost of the cologne. I was just like pitching in a little quarter basically. Anyway, but there I felt like so happy because I contributed to the cologne. And I was like, you're welcome, Dad. I'm so happy you got I'm like happy for you. Like, you're welcome. What do you want me to buy you next? Like, and then afterwards, like a week later, he's like, oh, here's the money and like a little bit more. And I'm like, oh, stop. But it kind of reminds me like, man, if my dad here is really good, like when it comes to like offering, like that's the word it gave me. Like when you give to your dad, like even if it takes you like a little bit, like you will not be disappointed when you see like his kingdom and all like the good things that he's doing. Like you can't be disappointed. Like when you give to your Father in heaven, you know, like first of all, he don't need it. Like it's just a quarter, and the rest of like he's a millionaire. It's okay.
Ludicrous to people to think that the fact that you're invested, you're giving, right? Not just the money part, because money is like, you know, like money. Whoa, you're giving your money away, right? But when you are investing, like we said, time that you're never getting back, because money you can get back, right? You'll have a good week at work or whatever. But
if you have more time,
if it's ludicrous for people to give their time away to invest in a person, because no, you could spend this time better with doing something, you know, that benefits you a little bit more. But like you're saying, like your dad gave you a little bit extra. That's the same way that God works. Yeah. Like I feel like God redeems time, you know, and you invest time with about a disciple or 12, and then even though it might feel like you're wasting time, in reality you're investing time, and God will give you, for example, a job that doesn't require to be 9 to 5, for example. You know, still waiting for that, but you know, I work, you know, a little bit more than 9 to 5, but I love it. But it'll come to the point where God will bless you to the point you don't have to be there, you know.
And I always think like, and the way God works, like he multiplies. So even when you give, you can't outdo God. He's going to outdo you. Like there's things we have now that we don't recognize that God is outdoing what you should have had because of our sinful nature. Like who would imagine like that you would be married, have kids, or that you would have a business? Like God's outdoing himself, outdoing you guys like now. And he's outdoing himself and me like so there's some things that I do not recognize. Like that's the multiplication of like his goodness. So that's why it's better to give than to receive. Someone from Cell was telling me like, I didn't have a concept of that. That's what they're saying. Like, I love to receive. Like I like presents. I like all of them. Like I'm a happy person. But if I think how happy I am when I receive and God says that it's better to give, then how much more am I going to enjoy it? Like when you trust God in that way, I was like, yeah, you're so right. Like if you like it, if you like receiving, then when you give, you're going to love it because God is going to outdo himself. Each time you give, like he's going to be like, you know what? Double it. Triple it 10 times.
Yes, I like how Pastor was saying as well that how he loves to see the change in people whenever they've encountered God. Like for him, that's like that brings so much joy to him. And it's true. Like when you see someone who, you know, God has restored and, you know, the process and you've invested your time and everything, like at the end, you see how they have been restored and you're like, oh my gosh, it feels so good to see, you know, that God's faithfulness is true in their lives. Like it wasn't a waste, basically. Like everything was for a reason. And now you see like, wow, like that's the joy. It brings you more joy, like to see their restoration. Like, wow, God, you're so good.
All the investment that pastors did too.
I know.
Like,
remember,
I love talking about that so much.
Take us like in their
everybody.
Like, I didn't know pastors' condition, like financial condition at the time. I didn't know how it was.
We just thought about being together, like the whole.
Yeah, so we would go right to little restaurant down the street, and years later. He tells me, he goes, yeah, like, who do you remember paying for that?
Yeah.
Because we would buy the big nachos, like, it was like big, it was like pizza big, right? The King Kong nachos at Chacho's.
And they would drive us everywhere. Because sometimes we would go to the movies fit,
like,
after.
what, 15 people in the car?
In the trunk?
Yes. So investing that time in us, and then us doing that with our disciples, and then it just the gift that keeps
Oh,
on
now we're doing it
giving.
with our
Yeah.
disciples. It's crazy.
Not in the
Like,
trunk because there's plenty of cars going around now. But by the way, my cell is tired of pizza.
Oh,
We do pizza for birthdays this year. We're changing it up. We're not doing pizza.
I don't know if my
anymore.
cell's tired of it, but for some reason, somebody always wants to get donuts.
I'm down for
I'm
donuts.
tired of donuts. I am tired of
we
donuts.
took a veggie tray though this week and donuts.
We love a healthy
Donuts.
queen. We love.
The
Okay, never
cell?
mind.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of donuts. Let me
Hey,
just say
my
that
girls
now.
are lucky if they get coffee. Because
So-
at this point, y'all gotta bring something to the table. I
So
got
we
$5. Yeah, what y'all bringing?
we have so at the shop or at my business.
Corn.
And no, they don't even get corn. No, I'm too tired for that. No, you guys. Sometimes when we like you guys want some agua fresca or Coke, water topo chico, or whatever you guys want,
Dang, they got the hookups.
Can I go see how
Can
you
I-
sell
can I go
one
to-
time?
You can go, but it's not gonna be no corn.
That's all I
Observe the cell. Just the snack table.
know.
There's the verse that we had read. It's Psalms 51, 10 through 13. And that's the one where David is, having that moment where he's recognizing like he's so far from God. And I just want to read those 3 verses. It says, "Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me." That verse, I think of like the Song of Solomon. Do not. Oh, I hate that song because it's too good. Makes me cry. And then it says, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me." I think like we had to been talking about this last week. Like there's, dangers, there's always the possibility of like sinning, making a wrong decision, and then losing your way. And I know we had talked about how God always brings us back in. But I love that verse, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me," something to uphold me. Like, give me a heart that's moldable. Like, I want to be willing to do your work. And there's another verse that says, "Then I will teach transgressors your ways so that sinners will turn back to you." Like, I feel like that's how God always brings us back with a purpose. Like, with the things that we do now, like that's us. We're bringing the transgressors back to your ways, back to you. Like, we're taking these people to you. Like, the more that we recognize this, the more that we're like, wow, like God, you're doing something powerful, like in each and every one of us.
God's not the one saying, "Hey, I'm going to restore you so you can guide or teach." It's David. So to me, that's like he understood that, look, I'm a wreck. I'm not good. But please, like, let me, like, give me a heart that I can maintain so that I can later help my version says the guilty and guide sinners back to you. So I think it's amazing how he's still in probably his lowest, he still recognized that, look, God, I don't just want restoration. I want it, but I also guide me so that I can restore others, So I think that's beautiful.
Crazy when we read this verse, it's like, "Do not cast me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me." It's like, that means he was so clear on how it was to live in the presence of God that now that he was like kind of out of it, he's like, man, I can just, I can't even
craving
imagine.
it.
Yeah, it's like, it's just hard to imagine. Well, for me now, you know what I mean? It's like saying, I can't go back to how I was before church. You know what I mean? Because then I'll know what it's like. Like, he doesn't want to be casted from the presence because he knows what it's like to be in the presence. And it's
no purpose.
Yeah, no purpose and not being blessed either, It's just when I was reading it, I was like, man, I can almost hear it reading it. I can almost hear him praying and telling God, like, please don't cast me from your presence. I want to be in your presence. It's kind of like, man, when Matt was sharing his testimony, I was like, little tear, and then I was like, get back in there. I was like, no, it was, you know what I mean? It's almost like that. I can almost feel what David was doing, and I don't know, it just blows my mind when I read it over and over.
Yeah, that verse, we're teaching sinners your ways. Like, there's always so much joy in that. Like, when I see someone having like that revelation moment, and it's like you're getting their joy, like it's not even your own experience, but like you're hearing them and you're seeing like salvation like come alive in them, and Jesus coming into them, the Holy Spirit, like you just see it all, and I don't know, it's like you take that joy, the joy of salvation. There's also a verse on that, but I can't remember it off of the top of my head, where it's like there's joy when you're spreading that good news. Like there's joy seeing other people come to Jesus for the first time.
That's how I see like Stephanie's mom, how she sees me. Every time she sees me, she goes, "Hola hermoso," you know, "You look handsome today," you know. And then she's always telling me that she's proud of me, even if she
I think she sees you like as a third son. Oh,
yeah. Oh, she forgot.
Nah, I don't feel offended.
But she sees me like
nice
that, and she's like almost as a way like I contributed to your success, to your restoration, and now you're restoring others. Mm-hmm. So it's like a little like a ladder, you know, like, you know, she pushed me and I pushed others, and then now my disciples are pushing other people, you know, or they're learning to. Mm-hmm. And there is a joy, and I'm pretty sure you see that, and you're joyful to see that because you did that to me, other people are now receiving that restoration. Like you have no idea, but your investment helped a lot of my disciples and other people who've been in my cell. People, for example, like Matt has no recollection, but your persistent being with me being with him helped his family be restored.
So, but see, that's what Pastor teaches us or has taught us. You know what I mean? So I learned it from our pastors as well. You know, they invested in us, which is why I love our church. It's so different from other churches because, you know, he's always motivating us, you know, like, hey, don't give up on someone. Like, you can't ever give up on anyone because he didn't give up on us. Yeah. You know, like, how can we give up on others? And it makes our church different in that sense that we're always like, going out and loving people, you know, because that's our whole purpose. You know, what else? Like, yes, when we die, what else are we going to take? Like, we have money, houses, but that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, God is going to say like, hey, what did you do for me here on earth? Like, that's what truly matters. And so I think, you know, thank God for our pastors. Thank God for our church that have always been there for us and invite us to go into the purpose where we can see, and then everything else just kind of adds on to us. You know, Matthew now we enter the blessings. Yes, everything follows us. In Jesus' name.
That's so good. No, I love this conversation. I love like just talking. It feels like when I'm in the car with Dani and she's like, oh, and then I received this, and then we just go bouncing off each other and we're like, and then this, and then this. But it's so good to hear like your perspective, your testimonies, how God is working in you now and how he's worked before. Like, that's so powerful. And I want to encourage you guys, like, to continue to allow God to restore your heart, to continue to walk in the process. Like, have an active lifestyle with Jesus. Like, don't quit. Keep walking in this, in the race of faith. Like, it's a race and we're not done and we're not finished, but God is going to give us the strength to continue. So I want to thank you guys again for listening. We're so happy that you guys joined us in, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye. Bye-bye.